Peace and blessings, peace and blessings. Shout out to my YouTube, Instagram, and my Facebook family. Okay, so what I'm gonna do today, I'm gonna prove to you brothers out there and whoever else, you're not crazy. Because sometimes we can blame ourselves for certain situations and we don't blame the system, okay? There's a system working around us, a political system, social system, a economic system, educational system. There are systems at play. And sometimes if we are not doing the proper reading and understanding meditation and spiritual things and prayer and words of affirmation, whatever you got to do, we can sometimes start blaming the wrong things, blaming your spouse, blaming your mom, your dad, blaming yourself. And I'm going to prove it to you today. Okay. I'm going to prove to you why your mental state and certain issues in your life are coming from a political and economic space and social norms and whatnot. Okay, let's start out with this. First, do you know America imprisons more citizens than any other country in the world? Right? And you ask yourself, okay, Mariah, why does that matter? Why do you think that is? Is there more criminals in the United States of America than anywhere else? I mean, America's committed some of the worst crimes on planet Earth, yeah. But just in a general sense, are there more drug abusers, abusive people than anywhere? No, but why are we such higher than that? Reason being is America likes to control its population. And they control the populations because they don't want to have to deal with certain social issues. If you isolate and you purposely push down a certain community, instead of properly building that community, right, or getting that community proper help, what would you rather do? You would just say, no, let's just criminalize them, throw them in prison. Also, if the case is that it is more expensive to imprison a person than it is to get them the proper care and education and a good job, right? It's more to imprison than it is to make this individual a decent person in society. Why would they choose the imprisonment? Because it's not necessarily about making a better society, right? So okay, let me keep going because I always get caught up in random side thoughts. So anyway, for instance, the drug trade, right? The drug trade was mainly aimed at the black community, right? If you get caught with crack cocaine, it's a different sentence to getting caught with whatever you guys call it, powder cocaine. Why? Because they wanted to isolate and marginalize a certain community, because within that they could then put you in a prison system to then get free labor from you. 13th Amendment, you can't become a slave unless you're in because you're a prisoner. But I want to talk about a certain terminology called affordability, right? I'm going to try to make this fit in a common sense perspective, right? Affordability means, can you afford what you need and want, right? If you look at most criminals and most people inside prisons, they're there for nonviolent crimes, right? And if you look at the 96 crime bill through Bill Clinton, it was mainly drugs. It was because of opportunity. There weren't jobs. There's over-policing. Okay. In the last century, when they called the Great American Empire, let's say like the Robert Kennedys and, not Robert Kennedy, but John Kennedy, why am I thinking Robert Kennedy? John F. Kennedy time, during the Ronald Reagan time, it was a bit more socialism going on, right? Lyndon Baines Johnson with the Civil Rights Bill. It was actually, I'm not going to say America tried, but they at least try to have a good look, a good face, right? So it was affordable housing. When you leave a high school, you could have a trade, an electrician, HVAC, this, that, and the other. And so during that time, this is right after World War II, the American Empire started after World War II. I know I'm sounding like I'm getting off track, but it's going to all make sense if you play this like 2 or 3 times. The reason being is all through Europe, right? This is right when America took off, right? And this is gonna come into your mental health issues. I'm gonna land the plane. When World War II ended, all of Europe was decimated. Italy, France, Germany, UK, right? Because they're fighting Hitler. And some of us Pan-Africanists found that maybe World War might be a good thing for African liberation, because the colonies that the British colonized within Africa, India, certain Asian places, the Caribbeans, all over, they were able to fight for their independence because the British, especially, who invaded, I think, about 90% of the world, this little island invaded 90% of the world. They were able to then, the reason being is because they came out with a gun. Nobody ever thought about killing 50 people at one time. That is a uniquely European thing. It's the truth. And I don't know if whoever's watching this, who might be a European, it's the truth. Nobody really sat down and said, how can I, from a distance, wipe out 50 people at once? That is a sick mind. But anyway, so England had lost its power during that. So let's say, like, my people from Kenya were colonized by the British, Dedan Kimathi and them. They were like, oh, they're down, let's fight. You go to India, they did the same thing, let's fight. A lot of different colonies. That's when colonialism came in the book that Kwame Nkrumah made, Neocolonialism, the last stage of colonialism, also the most dangerous, because that's when it's like a cat in the corner. That's when it gets wicked. And if you look at England today, it's nothing but a little wet, cold island, and it's full of pretty much nothing going on in England. They fell off, and that's where the American empire is going to. So the United States of America is going down a similar path of England. Once was a great power, had control of the whole world. Right after England fell, America pretty much took its step in as the little brother of England. They all still work together, and now you see Israel trying to do the same thing for the United States of America. So you can ask any economic intellectuals, American empire is going down. Reason being is there's more competition than it was back in the day. Between China and Russia and their partners, it created BRICS. There's a lot more competition. So I'm gonna land the plane, just follow me. I'm gonna land the plane. And it will never be, okay. So when you look at why America and why in our generation, they're saying it's gonna do worse, where the first generation is gonna do worse than the generation before us. Because what you're noticing is the price of everything's going up. Wages are stagnant. People aren't getting married like they used to. Mass incarceration. Healthcare is terrible. Look at Maggiani, the guy who unalived the United Healthway, I'm forgetting the name, executive CEO. Why do you, and people go, oh my goodness, why is that happening? Because you got somebody who's young, he's working, and he needs a certain surgery, but he's being denied. And so he executes him. These people, like those CEO executives, the reason why they do that is because they're trying to, whenever an empire is falling in all of history, what the people who are in control and the elites do is they tighten their grip. So if you're a health insurance CEO executive and your empire is falling, right? You have these baby boomers who are retiring. I'm not saying that's the reason why it's falling. And they're trying to cash in on their Medicaid and Medicare. What's one for the older people? What are you gonna do? Because you're not making the money you used to. What are you gonna do? You're gonna start denying. So now, when your grandpa needs that hip surgery, right? He's not old, he could work, he just needs that hip surgery. And he can't, so now he has to come live with you, right? And now you're like, I don't have the money to take care of my dad because my wages are stagnant. You start thinking, maybe there's something wrong with me. What's wrong with me? Why didn't I go to college? Why didn't I graduate? Why did I do? You start blaming yourself when in actuality, you got to look at the system and say, hold on, my dad's been working for this company for how long? You're not willing to pay that? Anyway, moving on. right now across America, if you don't notice this, the whole financial economic structure is being reorganized. Look at Elon Musk, a trillionaire. When you look at Elon Musk, he's a trillionaire. Do you know what that means? That means the very wealthy and rich they're not playing, right? How I'm gonna get into that because this is gonna be a whole nother conversation, and these videos be going long enough. But the way what Elon Musk's doing in his new SpaceX whatever bullshit scam he's pulling another scam. I don't think you guys know it, but I went into detail and I haven't finished my whole research on it, but it's a bunch of bullshit, right? But I'm gonna say like this: one of the major milestones of the fall of the United States is, I don't know, Cheryl always gets mad at me. I'm taking too long. All right, Cheryl, I'll be there. But one of the major milestones, right, when the American empire started falling and the world started to notice is let's go Vietnam, right? They invaded Vietnam. They dropped bombs, napalms. If you ever read about Vietnam and the war crimes that were committed, I'm talking about mass rape, children unalive, women unalived. It was just savagery. And to this day, I don't even know how Vietnam even forgave the United States. I really don't. I don't think they really did. But also, let's go Afghanistan. Went to Afghanistan, invaded it. Weapons of mass destruction. This is what empires do when they're on decline. They start having to use brute force. They can't use diplomacy anymore because the Eastern world is building itself. They're building their own economic structures like bricks. They're working together. So now when they say, hey, we might not need the dollars so much anymore, what? Invade the country. That's what imperialist, downfalling countries or empires do. Let's look at Ukraine. If this was back in the 50s, 40s, Russia would never even thought of invading Ukraine. Russia is over there right now, bombing the mess out of it. They took over Crimea. They're over there in Ukraine right now. I just saw on the news today that in Moscow, very close to the Kremlin, was bombed. So they're going through it. Iran. You guys just see this in Iran? U.S. just try to invade Iran. All they did was raise the oil prices, food prices, but there's a whole explanation to that. It's not just as simple as that, but lost that war. America's been losing war after war. Venezuela had to kidnap Maduro, right? All Venezuela is a small little poor country. They don't have much, but they're sitting on hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars in oil. And America says, we're a falling empire. How about we just go over there and just take that? And that's what they did. They kidnapped the president, which is an illegal war. It's a war crime. But we know Congress is not going to stop it. We know the Supreme Court's not going to do anything about it. Reason being, because everybody knows the empire is falling. So everyone's acting like they don't agree with Trump. But if you are doing your research and you're reading, the Democrats agree with Trump. The Republicans agree with Trump. They need Trump. Because Trump is the one who's willing to break all laws and do whatever the dirty work that needs to be done. Okay, now also another milestone is the dollar is not the number one currency. Well, it's still the number one currency, but it's falling rapidly. It has to compete with the euro. One thing after World War II, the euro, after World War II, the dollar was the only currency that really had strength to it. So now the euro's building. The Chinese, they call the yen, that's growing. The Indian rupee. Now they have bricks, like they said, and whatnot. Yeah, we already talked about that. So let's get back to affordability. All right, affordability crisis is when you can't afford things, which most people are going through right now. Most people can't afford the car note. Most people can't afford that vacation. Most people can't afford rent right now. It is real right now. Cost of groceries. People are getting hit over the head. And if you don't know this, you need to know this, because if you don't understand what's happening through history and the globe, you're going to start blaming yourself. And that's when that depression, that's when that anxiety, that's when, oh my God, what's wrong with me happens. Let me go into solitude or isolation. I like solitude. No, solitude is good, but isolation. Anyway, so let's look at another milestone as to why the empire is falling. When you see wealthy, rich, uber people like Elon Musk, Donald Trump's, Peter Thiel's, whoever else is out there, Soros, and I know people are going to say, no, Soros, no. These super hyper capitalist people start doing things to where, I'm not going to say they did that with, I ain't going to say Soros, but definitely Elon Musk when he came in with that whole efficiency Doge BS. And what would they say? Let's cut stamps. Snap. You're going to cut the food from the most vulnerable people. We're not talking about they need vacations, or we're not talking about a nice car. We're talking about just food. You're going to take it from babies. SNAP is meant for children who live in poverty. And you're going to say, listen, you're desperate. Those are signs of desperation. Firing of federal employees. Why do you think he walked in and said, let's fire all these employees? They're trying to save money. America right now is trillions of dollars in debt. Trillions, right? Elon Musk was hired to do an efficiency study. He ran Doge. His suggestions once was cut snaps, federal employees, just cut those. And we all know that because he runs a corporation where he hires people to do it for him. He has people come in and say, hey, check my numbers, run all this, and tell me what I can do. I don't care what it is. If it even means cutting someone's health care off that has cancer, we got to get rid of them. Let's also look at the education department. If you listen to right-wing conservatives all the time, they're constantly talking about cutting education. Why do we even need public schools? It's not in the Constitution. It really isn't. But most states, okay, I'm gonna go down the whole rabbit hole. If you know Rockefeller was the main one, John D. Rockefeller, who pushed for public schools because he said he wanted to at least have a smart, not a smart, but basically educated employees who could read, do math on a basic level. They don't have to be geniuses, but let them be able to read and do math. You know what I'm saying? Literate. And so right now with Elon Musk's whole Doge thing, he was even looking at Department of Education. That's the reason why Betsy DeVos was in there. And once again, how that trickles into your pathology as into your psychology, mental health, is because when you grow up in certain impoverished neighborhoods, you're wondering when you go to school why your books aren't like the kids across town, why you don't have the new laptops and the tablets, why you don't have, your bathrooms are clogged, the school lights don't work right, the speakers is bad, and it's just there's 50 kids to one classroom. Why? And that later on has a ripple effect to your prospects for careers later on in life. It's because of this. It's because of politics. It's because of economics. Them trying to save money for themselves, it has to trickle down to someone else. And that's going to be the poor kid in the hood, in the ghetto, who's going to this terrible school. He don't even like school anymore because he's not being even taught, right, in a way that he likes. So he drops out, he gets into trouble, he gets a felony, and now he's in another system that they created called mass incarceration where they can extract free labor. But anyway, these people have no respect for you, these people who are in charge. Once again, I'm going to stay on Elon because I think Elon represents the worst of these people. So Elon is always considered to be a genius because people are so, the average citizen is so misled that they consider wealth intelligence. He must be smart because he has a lot of money. No, most likely it's because he's a ruthless sociopath who doesn't care about anybody. He will do whatever it takes to get to the top, right? Also, another one sign that America's in decline, Donald Trump shut down the government for, 4 months? Federal employees couldn't get paid because they're trying to save money. They're trying to save money. Once again, they're $1 trillion and whatnot. So then it's desperation, making affordability, making it hard for an average people. Affordability, right? The definition of affordability is money coming in and the price you have to pay for a good or services. You wouldn't mind low pay if you had low prices. And you wouldn't mind having high pay. You wouldn't mind high prices if you had high pay. But that's not how it works, right? Let's talk about income. What you can afford depends on the amount of money you get. Now let's break this down. Who sets your wages? What percentage of the country sets your wages? Top 3%. 3% of the country are employers, right? And what happens when you go to a job? You go to a job, you sit down, you speak with somebody, they say, hey, this and this and that, like, this is how much we're willing to pay you, this is what the market pays you. Now, let's be honest, you can sit there and negotiate. That's what they tell you, negotiate. You gotta know how to negotiate and work in the world. Listen, they hold all the cards. They're the employers. And if you don't think this 3% sit around each other and talk about wages all the time, they know when you leave that interview, he's probably buddies with the next guy. They keep a tab on you. We're gonna keep your application on file. Why do you think they're gonna keep your application on file? They keep it attractive. And you better take that job because there's gonna be 20 other people in that lobby sitting out there with their little resumes. Like, I'll take it because it's so hard right now. Anyway, also, let's look at, on the other end, who sets prices for goods and services. That same 3%. So the people who are paying you for work are also the ones that you pay to get goods and services, food. So if you work at a warehouse, right? I've worked at warehouses before. And you go into a warehouse and say you guys do, I don't know what. Say you guys make, what should I say? Defibrillators, right? Mass production defibrillators. And you're a warehouse assistant manager and you're supposed to just keep track of everything that's coming in and going out. They pay you a good 70, 75K a year. And that's all you do. You're never gonna go inside their office and sit down with them and say, how much do you think we would charge you? Oh, no. There's a whole different department for that. You guys just work that area. There's a whole nother office in probably Seattle, Washington, and you work in DC who deals with that, right? So the same people who are paying you are also setting the prices. So they can squeeze you from both ends. So when you go to a job, you're like, I'm not getting paid enough. And then you go and try to buy some food, man, they charging too much at the grocery, I need to get paid. It's the same guy. It's the same people. Then on top of it, who owns most of the property? Who owns all these rental properties? The same 3%. You're living in the world where 3% of the population are controlling your whole movement. So when I see these guys get on the internet and start talking about entrepreneurship, build a business, and hustle, grind, I'm like, you don't understand money. You don't understand what's going on. And you can't hustle and grind around these people. These people have been doing this for centuries. And now that the economy's tanking, America's falling, they're trying to grab their money and run. Imagine like this. Imagine your life, you're in a casino with loaded dice trying to win at craps. You're trying to play baccarat and they know all the cards. You're in a casino. America's a casino, right? But they'll let you win so that you can just walk away and be cool. But anyway, so rent should be about 20 to 24% of your income. If you are paying more than 20 to 24% of your income a month, so take out your income a month, say times 0.2, right? That should be your rent. If you're paying more than in rent, you are getting abused. And that's across the globe. That's usually across the globe. Whatever people make on average, they say, okay, but if you look at places like New York, and this is the reason why I said the whole New York Knicks fan thing, I looked at it and said, you guys are insane. Do you understand for one, professional sports are rigged. And I'm gonna get into that. Professional sports are rigged. They let New York win it because they have a plan of mass gentrification in New York. You guys are running around Madani. Madani can't stop this. Madani is a small fry. New York, they threw you Madani like they threw us Barack Obama to make you think like, hey, oh, look, great Madani, guys. He's going to stop Amazon, Jeff Bezos, and those billionaires. Oh, no, not Madani. No, he's going to destroy us. They threw a couple carrots because they're about to run you over with a bulldozer. Look at all the people leaving New York. I know somebody in New York who pays $3,000 for a one-bedroom shitty apartment. $3,000. I said, what? 3. And it's not even like in a nice area. That New York Knicks championship was, I think, the last piece of complete gentrification. All that money and those celebrities showing up. You know the pricing of everything shot to the moon this last couple. It's like FIFA. Right now it's in the city. You know what I mean? Vendors like making. You're creating a situation where the only people making money is big business. Anyway, we're going to talk about that later on. So let's talk a little bit more about Elon Musk. Nah, we're going to leave Elon stuff later. But let's talk about Trump's tariffs. And this is another reason why I talk about psychology, because if you don't understand what the Trump tariffs were, Trump can't tax another country. A president of Guam can't tax America. All he can do is tax his own citizens. So when he says, I'm going to tax India, I'm going to tax this, I'm going to tax this, right? And this is the last part I'm going to read, right? And he's like, oh, I'm going to tax y'all because you're taking abuse of them. No, he's really taxing American businesses, right? So say if you own a coffee shop and you get coffee from Brazil or Kenya, he's not going to tax Kenya. He's taxing the business in New York. But this is why the economic loops keep playing. He drops that big, beautiful bill. What's in that big, beautiful bill is tax cuts for businesses. So with Donald Trump, it's like he's doing this and doing that. He's like, I'm going to tax a business, but I'm going to give you tax cuts so you even out. But he gives the business the space, and this is why I say capitalism is disgusting, to say, oh my God, guys, we're being taxed so much. To tax so much. Just, somebody, being taxed so much. So we have to raise our prices. Because the government, look at Trump, just like Donald Trump, Democrats do. Oh, look at Trump. He's so abusive. Anyway. Last thing, right? Oh man, I didn't even get through all this. So, last thing. So Donald Trump recently came out, and him and all his finance buddies came out with this thing called the 50-year mortgage. 50-year mortgage. Where they said, look, you have a 50-year mortgage to buy a house. So that means from the day you would graduate to high school, if you pay every month on this mortgage, you will probably die before that mortgage get paid. And then adding the interest, you probably pay 2 or 3 times for that house. The game is rigged, guys. And that's the reason I'm saying that's the main problem for a lot of us mental health, especially us men, because we're like, we got to be providers. We got to hustle. You're not in the group. You're not in the elite group. And the elite group is getting tighter and smaller and smaller. They're sucking the blood out of everything. If I control your wages, how much you make at work, I control your rent, and I control your food prices, your oil price, the same 3%, I control you. But if you don't know that, you're going to think there's something wrong with you. I know people with 2, 3, 4 degrees can't find a job. Degrees on... Anyway, I had to drop that for y'all. I got to get out of here. It's getting late. It's raining. But anyway, guys, learn this term called affordability. If you can learn what affordability is, it's going to let you open your minds into deeper perspectives on why you feel the way you feel, especially as men. You're not adequate enough, or I'm a failure, this and this and that. And that's when it leads into unaliving yourself, because you say, man, I can't accomplish anything. It's not you, it's a group system. That's why you got to organize, you got to unionize, people got to come together. These elites are going to do it because you're allowing them to. But if you're not educated enough, you won't see it. But anyway, you know the slogan, chase knowledge. Don't chase money. Peace, love.